Deep inside ourselves, we're opening to grace. And grace is already moving in the innermost spaces of our being. The Shaiva Shakta masters have this term, Swatantriya Vada. How does freedom combine with the relative prakritic body-mind? How does the upsurge of currents, actually, as if it were currents of the absolute itself, flow into and through the structure of relativity, of individuality, of our individual life wave? This paradoxical relationship that we have with something that is simultaneously utterly beyond us, and yet is at the same time the essential essence of our being, the very self, the absoluteness of life, flowing in waves of expansion and of transformation and of restructuring of our life. It's such an extraordinary idea that we are as we are, and then something begins to move inside us that compels and also facilitates and that oversees and indeed fundamentally performs the process of our own sequential rising, of our own sequential liberation, of our own sequences of understanding, of insight, of vision, of inner attainment, of a deeper and progressive stabilization of our awareness in domains beyond the ordinary, and that approach and draw closer and closer to this mystery of existence, the unboundedness of all, the universal totality, the fullness of life. These are profound philosophical teachings, but they are not merely that. They are also a description and an articulation of what is truly the most esoteric dimension of human life, how it is that we move from the condition of ordinary, I suppose, limitation and bondage and contraction and so on, progressively toward something that is absolutely the opposite of all of that. It seems impossible. It seems like a fantasy or a pipe dream or just something that human beings have imagined or just sought to find some kind of consolation in, an idea to hold on to in the midst of pain, suffering, disorientation, or just simply in the midst of the ordinariness, apparently, of existence. But that very so-called ordinariness is itself magically constructed and made of the extraordinary. And yet somehow that value of the extraordinary, of the alaukika, as it's called in the tradition, has been impossibly concealed. As what could possibly conceal the outrageousness of the absolute totality of existence? We say, well, it is its own function, the functionality of that absoluteness that engages in this play and that hides and conceals and essentially makes itself disappear, as it were, in plain sight. And then in its own unaccountable timetable, it begins to dance and play in the inner heart of human beings. Well, we contemplate this again and again and attempt to connect these philosophical teachings, these esoteric teachings that we receive from the tradition, with our own life experience. How do we describe what is moving inside? It is so tender. It is so elusive. It is so apparently just at the very edge of our own comprehension. We are overwhelmed at times, bewildered at times, uncomprehending of what is transpiring in our very own being. We seem to be assailed, in a certain sense, by the repetitive impact of something that seeks to move us forward and disallows us from remaining static or contracted or simply just staying exactly the same. There is a part of us that would like to arrange life so that it works for us, so to speak, and then somehow hit like a freeze button and just say, okay, everything is good now. Can everything please stop changing? We know this is not the experience of life. It is continuously changing. And the issue is, how do we align with that directionality of change that is progressive, evolutionary, refining, subtilizing, ascensional, expansive, liberating, just that leads us in the direction of fulfillment, of wholeness, of our own intrinsic perfection, and that we talk about this again and again, that we instinctively sense must exist somewhere, and that we look for, seek to find, hope to experience, attempt to locate in myriad different directions of life. And then we discover, oh, somehow it's right here. And I must cooperate with that evolutionary process, shaped into structures of refined and ultra effective practice, by means of which I can progressively discover and enter into and savor and relish and deeply make my own, as it were, this space of the universal and the transcendent, and then begin to also locate that which we originally take to be transcendental, Vishvotirna, as omnipresent, Vishvamaya. It is that out of which everything is made.